She slipped into my room, silent and bare, like she belonged. The planet, an icy exoplanet far from human civilization, was silent most of the time. Only the occasional rumble of shifting glaciers reminded him that he wasn't alone. Most nights, the emptiness pressed on him, heavy and cold. He rubbed his temples and leaned back. The others were asleep. The automated lights flickered faintly, casting long shadows across the room. The soft hum of the station's life support systems was almost comforting, yet tonight it felt wrong. Eric could feel it in his gut. Something was different. The first sound was almost imperceptible, a soft click like a tap of a fingernail against glass. He froze, his eyes scanning the dimly lit room. Nothing. Then she appeared. Eric blinked, thinking it was a trick of his tired mind. At first, all he saw was a silhouette, pale and almost glowing in the low light. Slowly, she stepped forward, silent as snow falling on frozen ground. She was human-like in shape and size, yet there was something about her that was impossible to describe. Her skin seemed almost translucent, faintly luminous, as if light moved beneath it. Her eyes were large and calm, reflecting the faint blue of the room's monitors. Eric's heart beat faster. What are you?" he whispered, though he knew no answer would come. She didn't speak, didn't even blink. She simply moved through the room as though she had always been there, her bare feet making no sound against the metal floor. He stood slowly, careful not to scare her. "You shouldn't be here," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "This is a human station. You can't just—" She stopped, turning her head slightly. For the first time, she looked directly at him. Eric felt a strange warmth pass through him, even though he couldn't understand why. It was as if she already knew him, already understood him. There was no fear in her gaze, no hostility, only curiosity. Eric took a cautious step closer. "Do you understand me?" he asked. The words sounded foolish in the cold, silent room. She reached out, lightly touching one of his monitors. The screen flickered under her touch, lines of data rearranging themselves as if responding to her. Eric's eyes widened. She was interacting with the technology, understanding it instantly. How are you doing that?" he stammered. She didn't answer. Instead, she moved around the room, touching walls, examining equipment, always quiet, always careful. Every motion seemed deliberate, precise, yet natural. She didn't seem to be hiding. She didn't seem to be threatening. She simply existed in the space, as if it were hers to walk through. Eric's fear began to mix with fascination. He had studied alien life before, but nothing like this. Nothing even remotely like this. Most extraterrestrial life forms humanity had discovered were simple: plants, insects, microbial life. The occasional humanoid species found on other worlds were hostile or distant. But she was different. He wanted to reach out, to touch her, to understand. But he also wanted to stay safe. His mind raced. Who sent her? Was she dangerous? Could she even speak? Could she think? Could she feel? "Listen," he said softly, keeping his hands in front of him to appear non-threatening. "If you're dangerous, I won't let you hurt me. But I want to understand you. I want to help." She paused, her gaze softening. She tilted her head, studying him in silence. Then slowly she sat on the edge of his desk, moving as gracefully as water flowing over ice. The glow in her skin pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Eric sat across from her, unsure what to do. "Are you alive?" he asked. The words sounded strange, almost ridiculous. Of course she was alive, but she didn't move like any living creature he had ever seen. Her hand hovered over the keyboard of his console. Data on the screen shifted and reorganized, forming symbols that looked like a language but wasn't any human language he knew. Yet somehow he understood the meaning. The symbols weren't words, they were concepts, patterns, a warning, a message. He swallowed. You're trying to tell me something." Her eyes flickered. For a moment her body shimmered as if made of light. Then she stepped back, pointing toward the viewport. Outside, the planet's sky was dark, but there were strange flashes of energy, blue, green, and gold, that danced across the horizon. They weren't storms. They weren't auroras. They were something else, something dangerous. Eric felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. I've never seen that before, he said. He knew it was impossible to explain. What is it? She didn't answer with words. Instead, she raised her hands, palms outward, and a faint glow emanated from them, touching the lights outside. The flashes of energy pulsed, then stabilized, forming patterns that seemed almost alive. Eric realized she was controlling them, guiding them, understanding them in a way humans could not. He felt awe and fear and wonder all at once. This being, whoever she was not just intelligent, she was beyond anything humanity had faced. And yet, she wasn't hostile. Not yet. Eric stood, approaching her slowly. I don't know if I can do this alone, he admitted. I don't even know what this is. But maybe we can help each other. For a moment, the room was still, save for the soft hum of the station and the distant wind outside. Then she moved closer. She leaned slightly, brushing against his arm in a gesture that seemed almost human. It was the smallest contact, barely noticeable, yet it carried a weight that made Eric's heart skip. He realized something important. Fear could have stopped him, but it didn't. Curiosity could have, but it didn't. Something uniquely human, empathy, intuition, courage, had made him stay. And maybe, just maybe, that was why she had come to him. Hours passed in silence. Eric and the alien sat across from each other, studying, learning, understanding in their own ways. He watched her move through his room with a grace that seemed impossible. She examined tools, consoles, even his personal effects, as if piecing together not just the station, but the humans who lived there. At one point, she paused at a photograph on his desk, his family, smiling at a picnic years ago. She traced the image with her glowing fingers, tilting her head, as if trying to understand the bond captured in that moment. Eric swallowed hard. This wasn't just curiosity. She was learning about humans, about him, about what made them human. A sudden alarm startled them. Lights flashed red across the room. A warning, an energy surge had been detected outside the station near the ice fields. Eric's heart raced. You know about this, he said, more statement than question. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked toward the viewport again, hands glowing, touching the swirling lights outside. The flashes of energy outside bent, twisting into shapes that resembled constellations. Human constellations, but rearranged in ways he couldn't comprehend. She was guiding the energy, containing it, maybe even communicating with it. Eric realized then that this being, this strange alien who had appeared silently in his room, wasn't just curious about humans. She had a purpose, and that purpose involved him. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. If you're here for a reason, he said, then I'll help. I don't know how yet, but I'll try. For the first time, she seemed to respond emotionally. Her glow brightened slightly, pulsing like a heartbeat in rhythm with his own. She stepped closer, letting him see her face fully. There was no threat, no malice, only trust. Eric knew in that instant that everything was about to change. Humans were not alone on this planet. They were not alone in the universe. And whatever this being was, she had chosen him to help guide humanity into a new reality, one where courage, curiosity, and understanding could be as powerful as any weapon. He didn't know what the future would hold. He didn't know if humanity was ready. But as he looked at her, standing there, silent and bare, like she belonged, he felt a surge of determination. Humans had faced impossible odds before, and they would face them again. And for the first time, he understood that sometimes, being human wasn't about being the strongest or the fastest. It was about seeing the unknown, reaching out and saying, I will try. The wind outside continued to howl. The station trembled slightly with the energy surges beyond the ice, and Eric knew that the first night of this encounter would never be forgotten. The alien had slipped into his room without warning, without fear, without explanation. And somehow that simple act, silent and bare, had set the stage for humanity's greatest challenge yet, and in the quiet that followed he whispered almost to himself, "Welcome, I guess." The next morning the station was quiet but tense. Eric Kellen moved carefully through the corridors, glancing at every monitor, every console. The alien, who he had started to call Lyra in his mind, was nowhere to be seen, yet her presence lingered like a faint glow in the corner of his vision. He rubbed his eyes, trying to focus. Last night had felt unreal. A being had appeared in his room, silent and unafraid, moving through human space as if she had been born here. She had shown him the energy surges outside the station, patterns of light and power that no human could understand. And she had stayed, somehow trusting him. Now, though, doubts crept in. What if she wasn't friendly? What if the energy she had controlled last night had been dangerous? Eric tried to shake the fear. Humans had faced the unknown before. They had survived worlds colder, storms stronger, creatures stranger. But this was different. This was something entirely new. He entered the main lab where the rest of the team had gathered. Dr. Mara Elwin, the station's lead scientist, was already at the monitors, frowning at the readings. "Energy surges again," she said without looking up. "And these patterns, they're impossible." "Nothing we've seen before behaves like this." Eric nodded. "I think I know why," he said cautiously. "Last night something or someone interacted with them. I saw it myself. Lyra, maybe, she was controlling the energy." The team froze. Some of them glanced at him like he had gone mad. Commander Riker, a tall man with a permanent frown, crossed his arms. "Controlling the energy. Lieutenant, are you saying?" "Yes," Eric said firmly. "There's an alien. She came into my room. She's intelligent. And I think she's trying to help us." There was a stunned silence, then Mara shook her head. "An alien here, on this planet? Are you sure you're not dreaming?" Eric felt the frustration rising. "I'm not dreaming. I stayed with her for hours. She's not hostile, not at all. But she understands things humans can't even begin to grasp. And the energy surges, they're dangerous. If we don't act, they could destroy the station or worse." Commander Riker stared at him, his expression unreadable. "You expect me to believe you? That some glowing creature walked into your room and can control these energy waves?" "Yes," Eric said, his voice steady. "I do, and I need your help. We can't handle this alone." For a long moment no one spoke. Then Mara sighed, finally turning to him. "Fine," she said. "Show us what you saw. If this alien is real, and if she's intelligent, then maybe she's the key to understanding these surges." Eric nodded. "Good, then let's find her." They searched the station from top to bottom. Eric felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. He didn't know if Lyra was hiding or simply moving silently like she had before. The energy surges were stronger now, shaking the station occasionally, sending a low rumble through the floors. Finally, in the observation deck, they found her. She was standing by the viewport, gazing at the swirling lights in the sky. Her bare form glowed faintly, casting a soft light over the metal floor. When she noticed the humans, she did not flee or hide. She simply looked at them, calm and curious. Eric stepped forward. "Lyra," he said softly. She turned her head slightly, acknowledging the name, though she made no sound. He held out a hand, a gesture of trust. Slowly she approached. Mara, ever the scientist, couldn't resist. "We need to understand her," she whispered to Eric. "How does she communicate? How does she think? How can she control this energy?" Eric nodded. "We'll find out, but carefully. She's not human. We can't force her to obey us. We have to earn her trust." Over the next few hours, they experimented cautiously. Lyra interacted with the consoles, and to their amazement, the data on the screens rearranged itself, forming patterns humans could interpret. It was like watching someone solve a puzzle in an instant, a puzzle humans had been working on for weeks. Through trial and error, Eric realized she wasn't just responding to commands. She was teaching them. The energy surges weren't random. They were alive in a sense. Conscious, perhaps, or at least reactive. Lyra could communicate with them directly, not through words, but through patterns, gestures, and subtle manipulations of the energy. It was like learning a new language, one that required patience, observation, and intuition. And humans, despite being slow and clumsy compared to her, were beginning to understand. That night the station shook harder than before. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and the temperature dropped rapidly. The energy outside was rising, forming enormous arcs that licked the ice fields like fire. Mara's console showed a spike unlike anything she had ever recorded. Eric rushed to the observation deck. Lyra was already there, standing calm in the midst of chaos. She extended her hands toward the surges and the energy responded. Waves bent, arcs twisted, and for a moment the storm outside seemed almost tamed. But it wasn't enough. The energy was too strong. Eric realized that even with Lyra, they couldn't control it fully. "We need a device," he shouted to Mara over the alarms. "Something to amplify her power, something we can all use together." Mara's eyes widened. "Are you insane? That could be dangerous if it fails." "It has to work," Eric yelled. "We don't have a choice." With shaking hands but determined minds, the team worked. They scavenged equipment, rewired consoles, and combined human technology with Lyra's abilities. It was chaotic, tense, and exhausting. But slowly, a plan took shape. They built a device that could focus Lyra's energy, amplify it, and allow humans to interact with the surges safely. It was crude but functional. Eric held the controls, Mara monitored the output, and Lyra guided them silently, her glow steady, her presence calm. The first attempt was terrifying. When Lyra touched the device, arcs of energy shot through the viewport, lighting the ice fields in unnatural colors. The station shook violently. Eric barely held onto the console as sparks flew and alarms screamed. But then the energy began to respond, slowly at first, then with increasing control. The storm outside bent to their combined will. For the first time, humanity and alien intelligence worked together as a team. It wasn't perfect. Mistakes were made. Equipment fried. Alarms blared, but step by step, wave by wave, they managed to stabilize the surges. Eric felt a thrill unlike any other. They were facing a force far beyond human capability, and yet humans were making a difference. Their ingenuity, courage, and determination mattered. They could contribute, they could adapt, they could survive, and they had Lyra, whose presence had changed everything. As the night wore on, Eric realized something important. Lyra wasn't just helping them, she was observing, learning. She was teaching them, preparing them for something bigger. The energy surges weren't the only challenge. This planet, this system, perhaps even the galaxy, held dangers humans had never imagined. And Lyra had chosen them, Eric, Mara, and the rest of the station, to rise to meet them. When the surges finally calmed and the station's system stabilized, Eric stepped back and looked at Lyra. She had moved to the center of the observation deck, her glow fading slightly as if resting. She didn't speak, didn't move unnecessarily, but her eyes held something profound. Trust, challenge, expectation. Eric knew then that this was more than a chance encounter. It was a beginning. Humanity had been tested and had proven itself capable not just of surviving but of learning, adapting, and rising to meet the unknown. Mara came up beside him. "Do you realize what just happened?" she asked quietly. "We just did something no human has ever done. We worked with an alien being, controlled a force we can barely understand, and survived. Unscathed." Eric nodded, eyes still on Lyra. "And that's only the start. There's more coming. I can feel it. Whatever brought her here, whatever she's preparing us for, we'll need all of our courage, all of our creativity, and we'll need her." For the first time in days, Eric allowed himself a small smile. Humans had always been underestimated. They had always faced impossible odds. And tonight, on this icy, distant world, they had proven, again, that humans belonged among the stars. Lyra stepped closer to him, her hand brushing his shoulder gently, an almost human gesture of acknowledgement. Eric understood. The next challenge would be harder, bigger, and probably more dangerous. But he also knew something crucial. Humanity could rise to it. And whatever the galaxy had in store, humans together with Lyra would be ready. The storm had returned with a vengeance. Energy arcs licked the ice fields outside the station, brighter and more violent than ever. The alarms screamed constantly, echoing through the corridors like a warning. Even the steel walls seemed to shiver under the force of the surges. Eric Kellen stood in the observation deck, hands gripping the rail as he watched the chaos unfold. His heart pounded, but not with fear. This was the moment they had been preparing for. Every hour of effort with Lyra, every failed attempt in recalibration, had led to this. Humanity's ingenuity would now be tested against a force far beyond their understanding. Lyra floated in the center of the deck, her glow steady, illuminating the room with soft light. She extended her hands toward the viewport, and the wild energy outside seemed to bend, twisting into patterns she alone could guide. But even she struggled against the sheer magnitude of the surges. "Lyra," Eric shouted over the alarms. "We have to combine our efforts, now." She turned her head, acknowledging him with calm eyes. It was as if she had been waiting for this exact moment, the moment when humans would rise to meet the impossible. The station's crew sprang into action. Mara and the engineers manned the consoles, adjusting the amplification devices they had built to focus Lyra's power. Eric coordinated their efforts, giving instructions with a steady voice despite the trembling floor beneath him. Every action had to be precise. Every decision mattered. The first attempt was catastrophic. When Lyra touched the amplifier, the energy arcs outside surged uncontrollably, striking the ice fields with explosive force. The station rocked violently, and sparks flew from overloaded circuits. Crew members were thrown to the floor, shouting as alarms blared. Eric scrambled to stabilize the control panel, using his knowledge of the station's systems to reroute power. "Focus on the flow," he yelled. "Not the strength, control it." Lyra adjusted her stance, her hands glowing brighter, pulsing in rhythm with the machines. Slowly, the energy arcs outside began to respond. They bent, twisted, and spread evenly across the horizon. Eric felt a surge of hope. "Steady, steady," he muttered. "We can do this." Hours passed in a tense, precise struggle. The energy outside was intelligent in a way that humans could barely comprehend. It pulsed, reacted, and sometimes resisted, as if testing them, teasing them. But Eric and his team refused to give in. Humans were stubborn creatures. They adapted, they calculated, they risked everything for survival and for success. At one point, a massive surge struck near the station, sending a shockwave through the ice fields. Lyra's glow flared, stabilizing the impact with an invisible shield of energy. Eric realized that even though she was powerful, she alone could not manage this threat. Human creativity and quick thinking were just as important. They were partners now, human and alien working together, each complementing the other's abilities. Mara adjusted the amplifier, her fingers flying over the controls. "I've synced it with Lyra's energy pattern," she shouted. "It should stabilize the surges if she can guide it." Eric nodded and took a deep breath. "Then let's do it, together." With a coordinated effort, they began to bring the energy under control. Lyra's hands moved like a conductor's, directing the wild power outside. The humans adjusted the machines in perfect timing, amplifying her influence and redirecting dangerous arcs away from the station. Slowly, carefully, the energy began to obey. For the first time, the sky above the ice fields calmed. Arcs of energy spread evenly, forming beautiful, glowing patterns. They looked almost alive, like a living tapestry of light. Eric couldn't help but feel awe. Humanity had faced countless impossible challenges before, but nothing like this. And yet, here they were, standing tall, working as one and succeeding. But just as relief began to creep in, a massive shockwave erupted from the largest surge. It was unlike anything they had seen. The station shook violently, alarms screamed louder than ever, and part of the floor beneath them buckled. Eric shouted, "Brace yourselves. This is it, the final test." Lyra's glow flared, brighter than ever, and Eric could feel the immense power radiating from her. The amplifier devices began to overload, sparks flying as the surges threatened to destroy everything. The team had seconds to act. "Redirect the flow. Focus on the central arc," Eric yelled. Now, the humans adjusted the amplifiers, working with precision and speed. Lyra guided the energy with her hands, her pulse in perfect synchronization with the machines. For a terrifying moment, it seemed like the station would be ripped apart. But then, suddenly, the energy bent perfectly to their will. The massive surge stabilized. The storm calmed. The sky above the ice fields glowed with radiant colors, a cosmic dance of power tamed by the combined efforts of human and alien intelligence. The crew collapsed where they stood, exhausted but exhilarated. Eric sank to his knees, breathing heavily, staring out at the now calm sky. He couldn't believe what they had accomplished. Humans had faced the impossible and prevailed. Mara joined him, her hair disheveled, her face streaked with sweat. We did it," she whispered. "I can't believe it, we actually did it," Eric nodded. "We couldn't have done it without Lyra," he said. "And she couldn't have done it without us. We worked together. Humanity matters, our courage, our intelligence, it counts, and it saved us." Lyra floated closer to him, her glow softening. She reached out a hand, brushing lightly against Eric's shoulder. It was a simple gesture, but it carried profound meaning: trust, respect, acknowledgement. For a moment, Eric realized something deeper. Humans had always been underestimated, always considered fragile and limited. Yet here they were, capable of understanding, adapting, and thriving in the most extreme circumstances imaginable. Humanity had faced the unknown and had not only survived, but had helped shape it. The next hours were spent repairing the station and stabilizing systems. Lyra moved through the corridors alongside the humans, guiding them without speaking, always calm, always precise. The team began to understand her better, not just her abilities but her purpose. She was here to prepare them, not just to survive the energy surges, but to teach them that humans were capable of more than they had ever realized. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, and humans had to rise to meet them. And Eric realized that they were ready. By morning, the station was fully operational. The energy patterns outside had stabilized, forming a breathtaking display of light and power across the ice fields. The sky glowed in brilliant colors, like ribbons of living energy dancing in harmony with the station below. Eric stepped onto the observation deck, watching in awe. "We did it," he whispered. "We really did it." Lyra appeared beside him, her glow dimmer now, softer. She reached out to touch his hand. Eric felt warmth and reassurance. No words were needed. They had communicated, understood, and trusted each other in ways beyond language. And now, humanity had proven itself worthy, not just to survive, but to belong. Mara came up beside him. "Do you realize what we just accomplished?" she asked quietly. "We didn't just stabilize the energy. We showed that humans can rise to any challenge, that we can work with beings far beyond our understanding and still make a difference." Eric nodded. "Exactly, and this is only the beginning. The galaxy is full of unknowns. But humans, we can face them, we can adapt, we can lead, and Lyra, she's here to help us do just that." The team gathered in the observation deck, looking out at the calm sky. For the first time, there was no fear, no doubt, only determination. Humanity had faced a force beyond their understanding and had prevailed through courage, creativity, and cooperation. They had earned their place among the stars. Eric looked at Lyra one last time. "Thank you," he said softly, "for trusting us, for showing us what we can do." She nodded slightly, her glow pulsing gently in acknowledgement. And in that moment, Eric understood the full meaning of her presence. She had not just arrived silently in his room. She had come to awaken something in humanity, a reminder that humans were never meant to be passive observers in the universe. They were explorers, thinkers, fighters, and creators. They belonged among the stars. As the first light of the planet's distant sun broke over the horizon, the team stood together, humans and alien alike, ready for whatever lay ahead. They had faced the impossible and emerged stronger, and Eric knew that humanity's journey was only just beginning. Because no matter what the universe threw at them next, humans would rise. They always had. They always would. And in that there was hope.